Hello, the Pioneer viewers. The Russia-Ukraine war remains on our agenda. The war on the front continues with all its reality and devastating effects. It's becoming possible to better understand the process with the observations and analysis on the war. The war positions are shifting as parties' mutual attacks and efforts to gain benefits increases. As the war approaches its second year, the casualties continue to rise. One of the most critical points in the times of war is to retain the power to sustain the war. War continues not only on the front but also with the activities behind the front. For this reason, it is very important to sustain the production power and resources that can sustain the war. It is not possible to achieve successes without sustaining the human and weapon resources of the war. As the second year of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine approaches, the casualties seems to have reached high levels. Russia initially planned to advance into Ukraine with a rapid invasion plan, unable to achieve what it had hoped for. In the face of the strong resistance of the Ukrainian army, Russia taken by surprise. The war, which Putin characterizes as a military operation, has become an insurmountable situation for Russia. The Russian army, which did not want to withdraw from the occupied territories, was trapped in Ukrainian territory. Having exhausted its resources in Ukrainian territory, the Russian army is having difficulties in solving its logistical problems. Russian logistics have been problematic since the beginning of the war, and Ukraine's strategic operations have made it even more difficult. Russian troops on the front line have not received reinforcements, and Russian troops, having exhausted their resources, have been forced to withdraw from some points. Some Russian troops in Ukrainian territory are being hunted down in turn by Ukrainian operations. The information released by Ukraine the other day showed the extent of the Russian losses. The statement was made with surprise by many people. Now, if you're ready, let's analyze the latest developments together. As the Pioneer, we continue to report on Russia-Ukraine war. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so as not to miss our daily map reports and reports on the agenda. I also read all your comments on our videos. Please continue to share your ideas about our content in the comments with us. Tell us in the comments what content you would like to see on the Pioneer channel. Let's start if you're ready, the Pioneer reports. The war report was recently released by the Ukrainian authorities. Since the beginning of the war, the Kiev authorities have used a strong communication strategy. They have been sharing daily information and images from the front line, which the Ukrainian leadership sees as a sign of transparency. The images and information shared by Ukrainian government are known as valuable source for international community to follow current events. In a report published on social media the other day, the Ukrainian armed forces said that Russia has lost a total of 740 soldiers in the last 24 hours. According to figures announced by Ukraine, the number of Russian casualties in the last weeks has reached incredible levels. The Russian losses announced by Ukraine do not only include the number of soldiers. Along with the number of soldiers, equipment, and weapons losses are also included in reports. According to the statements made by the Ukrainian armed forces, the Russian army lost 6,080 soldiers in the last week. The losses have reached quite high levels for Moscow, which has recently had difficulties in sending troops to the front line. In the continuation of the statement, it was stated that Russia lost 99 tanks in the last 1 week clashes. In addition to tank losses, more than 200 artillery systems are among the losses announced. The Russian Defense Ministry refrains from making public statements. Since the beginning of the war, Moscow officials have not made clear statements about losses. This attitude of Moscow has caused public concern. The Russian people are very dissatisfied with the Kremlin's moves during the war. Difficult living conditions have a negative impact on the population. Military experts say it is very difficult to determine casualties in an ongoing war. However, official statements are considered an important source of public opinion. Moscow's communication policy during the war has been the target of criticisms from many points of views. The British Ministry of Defense is also closely following the war process. The reports published by the British Ministry of Defense at certain intervals contains various analysis on the war processes. In the statements published the other day, important information about the future of the war shared. The British Ministry of Defense said that statements of Ukrainian officials shows the increase in Russian losses. It was stated that the quality of Russian troops decreased with the sending of reverse soldiers to the front in September 2022. Accordingly, the increasing losses were also considered as an important detail. The British Ministry of Defense has stated that if the number of Russian soldiers and casualties continues in the same way throughout 2024, They predict that Moscow will suffer more than 500,000 casualties in the war by 2025. Russia's policy in recent days has raised questions in the statements made by the authorities. The large-scale exercises organization by NATO seems to have frightened Russia. Defense investments and military expenditures in Europe caused concern for Russia. European countries are taking security measures against Russia's aggressive policy. Every state wants to be ready for a possible war in the coming days. Kiev authorities have also been making strategic moves in recent days to increase their power against Russia. First of all, Kiev has approved an increase in military spending and investments in the defense industry and wants to implement a planned development model. Efforts to strengthen Ukraine's infrastructure and resources have recently gained momentum. The recent announcement by the Ukrainian railway company Zelensky shows how much importance is attached to infrastructure investments. Ukraine's railroad infrastructure had been targeted by the Russian army in previous periods. For this reason, Ukrainian authorities have developed a method to protect against Russian attacks. Aiming to protect the railway structure by using unmanned aerial vehicles, Kiev authorities form a unit for this task. The officers in the unit will be soldiers who previously served in the Ukrainian armed forces. Railway workers who were wounded in the war and had to leave the army will work as part of the unit. Railway infrastructure is a very important transportation network, especially for providing logistics to the front line. Trains are critical in times of the war due to their large volumes and fast transportations. Earlier in the war, the Ukrainian army targeted Russian railways as a part of strategic operations. Russian troops, whose transportation network was disrupted after the Ukrainian attacks, were unable to reinforce to the front line for a long time. For this reason, the protection of the railroad network became a very important necessity. By taking these measures, the Ukrainian army aims for an uninterrupted logistic network. How do you assess Russia's massive losses, and do you think that the Russian army is more likely to withdraw from the war as it continues to suffer losses? How do you assess the Ukrainian army's policies during the war? How do you assess the measures taken by the Ukrainian army to protect the railways? We value your opinion. Please share it with us.